Welcome to the Code with Jason meetup. Today we're going to do some more coding on my CI product, SaturnCI. It's a continuous integration tool, test runner. Um, think of CircleCI and GitHub Actions. It's kind of apples to apples with those, except unlike those tools, mine hardly does anything and it's unusable. Um, but I just started. I'm going to share my screen and talk about what we're going to work on today. Okay, so here is the UI in its current state. Um, my, I'll try to give an overview of like where it's at in general. So right now you can do a git push and it'll kick off a test run. And something that's new, I don't think I've shown it on the meetup yet, is that it runs parallel jobs now. So instead of, you know, in theory, if you have a test suite that takes 10 minutes to run, you can run two parallel jobs, which will each take 5 minutes. And then your test suite will take 5 minutes instead of 10 minutes. That's not exactly how it works out because there's some overhead, and I'll have to address that overhead and get that down as much as I can. But anyway, this parallelism was a huge and necessary step. So we have that now. Um, but I'm kind of paying attention to the things about the UI that annoy me as I'm working on it. And there's a couple things that I want to point out today that we can maybe address. One is a minor thing. When you open a project, there's a list of your projects here. There only happens to be one project right now. Um, but it should be selected, but it's not selected. So that's a bug. And I'm going to actually try real quick to see if I can add a second project just to make it a little bit more clear what the intended behavior is. And this is another, oh, there we go. Okay. Um, there's one other project that I have like configured to work with Saturn, and it's called Books. Okay, so no builds yet, but that's fine because now in this drop down here, we see our two projects. So I added that because if you want to switch between two projects, it's like annoying to have to go here and then go here. I wanted to be able to just go here. Okay, but as you can see, it doesn't stay selected. So let's fix that. I don't know where that is, so I'm going to look in layouts application. Oh, sorry, I have to let somebody into the room. Zoom puts like the control bar and the thing where I admit people in the same place so they overlap, so I can't click it. Okay. Let's find this drop down. Looks like it is here. Okay, so I'm going to write a test that fails when this bug is present and passes when the bug is fixed. All right. So how do we do that? Not sure. I'm going to call it, I don't know, select project spec. And I'll copy one of my other system specs, use that as a starting point. I may well change some of these descriptions and the file name and that kind of thing. But I don't really care that much what it is right now. Okay, so I want to visit a certain project. Okay, so I guess I need to create a build. No, I don't. I just need to create a project. Visit project build project. No, visit project path. Project path project. Okay. And I want to log in as project.user. Okay. And I'm just going to run that much and see what happens. Okay. That passes. And when I'm writing tests, I tend to write like one line, run it to see what happens, write another line, run it to see what happens, and go like that. All right. So I think what I want to do next is just expect that this dropdown has the name of the project. Okay. And I made this a comment because I don't want to have to do the thinking to figure out how to write this test. I want to delegate that to ChatGPT. I'm telling it to fill in the comment in the test. I gave it my test and the relevant view code. Okay. Let's see what this does. Okay, that passes, even though I would think that it shouldn't. So let's pop open a browser window and see what's going on. Okay. So in the test environment, it passes, but in the dev environment, it, well, in the dev environment, we have the bug, and in the test environment, we don't have the bug. So that's interesting. I'm going to go to projects and click on my project. No, it still works just fine. Okay, well, that's interesting. Apparently, there's some difference.
Can you check on your dev environment between those two pages? Because it looked like it was different even in the browser there. Like here, it's not selected, but if you go to projects, was it selected? All right, so it's different here too.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to do that same thing again. See if I can notice any other differences. Oh, you know what? I just realized what it probably is. Okay. If you go to the path for a project like this, you'll get redirected to whatever the first build is. And in my test, it doesn't do that because the project doesn't have any builds. And actually, let's see. Yeah, look, books works because there's no builds. It's only when you're at a build path that it doesn't work. That makes sense. Okay. So I'm going to say context, there are no builds. It it makes the shows the current it fills the select input with the currently with the project currently being visited. But I don't want to say fills, that's not accurate. Sets the select input to the project currently being visited. I guess I'm happy with that. All right, and I'll run that just to make sure it still passes. Okay, and then I'll say context context, there is at least one build. Same expectation. But before, I'm going to do create build project. And I expect that this will fail. Yep. Okay. Okay. And it's checking in this way. Oh no, that's where it sets it. How does it decide what's selected? I don't know.
Is
Um,
project instance defined on the build path at project?
Good question. Apparently not.
Because the ampersand is a bit of a
Yeah.
red flag.
Mm-hmm. So this is that controller. And yeah, it's not setting project. Um, oh, and this is interesting. That's neither here nor there though. Um, project. Yeah, I want to set the project in all these cases. Hmm, trying to think. Well, a dumb way I can do it is just this. And I would expect that that makes this test pass. It does, but then there's all these other ones. Maybe I want to have test for all those. Hmm. Context, visiting, test output page. So let's see. I'll do system logs first. Okay. Visiting. Oh, all right. There I had to admit another person to the meeting. Um, visiting system logs page. Okay, so we visit there. Whoops. And I'm going to do this actually. Okay, so I'm asserting that when we visit the system logs page, we still see the right selection. I expect this test will fail. Oh yeah, sorry. Roger says, can you make the text bigger? I usually do that, but today I forgot. There. Um, okay. So I can fix that again in this dumb way by doing this. And I expect that this will pass. Then I expect if I run all the tests in this file, they'll all pass. Okay. But this is no good because this is really duplicative. So I need to set the project on all these actions, but I can't just do it before action because build is not set build needs to be set first, but it's not set in the same way on all these actions. So I wonder what I want to do. And obviously there's quite a bit of duplication in general in these. Let's see. I'm actually going to make them all completely identical. I wonder if this group of stuff represents an idea. Sorry, I'm just going to run all my tests because maybe I actually want to commit at this point and then come back and deduplicate this. Okay. Oh, and I'll look at it in the UI too. Yeah, see, now it works. So that's nice. I'm going to review my changes as always. No surprises. Fix project select bug. Okay, so now I'm going to open the builds controller. The question I was asking myself was, does all this represent a concept? Well, the build list could have a build. Build list. Okay, so by the way, the build list is this. I'll show you the build list class. Okay, so this class is responsible for getting all the builds and the branch names. Because otherwise all that would be duplicated among all these. Partial. So the partial is what's over here. It's going to be test output or test report or system logs. And that is a separate thing from the build list. I feel like a lot would be simplified if these build assignments were just the same. Here is a thought. Let's kill this because that's clearly not supposed to be there. I'm going to write this really poorly named function called do stuff. And I'm going to do this. So I could say do stuff, build.find params ID. And then here it's do stuff, build.find build ID. And obviously I could even change that to just params ID and params build ID. Maybe actually I would prefer to do this. Set build, maybe, but does more than just sets the build. And I'm not sure I even like this anyway. This kind of like obscures what's happening. I can't think of any method name that would add sufficient meaning. Okay. Before I do anything, this is just distracting me and it's like embarrassing. I'm gonna get rid of it. Okay. So we're assigning the build, then the project, and the build list, and the partial. Hmm. Let's go to these because these three are all like apples to apples with each other, and show is a little bit different. This definitely feels like it should be dried up.
That build project build list cluster, is that can you give that a name? Sounds like that's something that you're kind of putting together consistently.
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. I don't know. These are like very distinct things.
But they make up a space, right?
What
The
do you mean,
build and
Ryan? Like they
well,
go ahead.
the build refers to the right-hand panel, if I remember from prior conversations, and the build list refers to the left-hand panel, and together they make up the project space. So you could go that direction and say project space, build space, something space,
Hmm.
because those are the three things that make up this the component, right? Project, a build list, and a build.
Well, there's the build list, there's the build itself, and then there's whatever detail page we happen to be on.
But it's like a project build space, right? There's a separate one of these for each project, right? I mean, theoretically.
Right. I feel like I mean, kind of what I established in my mind at one point is what we're looking at right now is a build.
Mhm.
Specifically, we happen to be looking at the test output of this build, but this whole thing is a build. And the fact that the build list is being shown is just kind of like that's like extra. Can I set this build list in an after action? Hmm. Okay. After action, set build lists only um, show system logs. Well, maybe I should do accept. Accept, create, destroy. Okay. And then set build list would of course be this. Okay. Does that work? Yeah, not surprised that it doesn't. Um, it says build list is nil. Okay. Yeah. Hmm. Okay, that didn't work. Okay. Well, the thing that really matters is the build Like it seems appropriate to be setting the build at the beginning of each one of these. But here's something we could do. I've been hesitant to do this, but it is an option. Do before action, set build. And then I don't like doing this kind of thing with the or. Makes it a little less certain. But we'll try it on for size. The page at least still loads. Um, okay. And I know this project equals build.project. I like am annoyed that I have to do this because it's only for the purpose of that select input. But I'm just going to move that into here, at least for the moment, and see how I feel about it. Okay. And that gets us down to this. And I mean, honestly, if we're going to do that, we can do this. And that works.
Well, you found your name for do stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I found a name, but set build is.
That was sarcasm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, you got to something different.
Yeah, well, this is interesting to look at least. Hmm. Okay. Yeah, there's like more to the picture, but it's not clear that there's more to the picture. You look at this
What
and
what's your
uh-huh.
holdup? Is it the naming of it, or is it
Well,
the
my
pattern?
my holdup is that you look at this and you're like, okay, we're setting a partial to system logs, then we're rendering show, and you think that that's all that's happening, but really all this other stuff is happening.
So let's say you had a name that you felt comfortable with,
Hmm.
right? And you could do whatever that name is and just use a poro. Would that change your thinking here?
I don't know. I think I want to invert these things. So I'm just going to put this where I can easily see it for a minute. I'm going to put it like here. Okay. And it's like, hmm. Oh, something is coming through on the chat. You don't need a life cycle. What do you mean by that, Roger? You just call the
Control.
method inside the methods. Right.
So then
And
it
that's
would
what
say
I'm thinking.
set build, and you would see it, and then you would go, "Oh, this is happening," and then you could look down and see what's happening. But
Right.
you'd have some intimation right away what's that there is something else happening in the nature of that happening.
Let's try that. I know for sure that I don't ultimately want to go with the name set build, but let's oh crap. Hang on. I'm gonna just blow away everything I've done. Why is this not letting me do this? Okay. What? This is so weird. Apparently, I no longer know how to open a file. There. Okay. Um. Okay. So these three things are definitely different from show. System logs, test report, and test output are definitely different from show. But I'm going to do this. I'm going to create another method. I'm going to call it thing. And I'm going to say thing test output. And this will be thing test report. This will be thing system logs. All right, see you, Mike. Thanks for coming. Okay, Roger apparently loves this. Okay, I'm gonna see if that runs. No, it doesn't. Oh yeah, it needs an argument. Partial. Okay. Hmm. Let's see. Hmm. Maybe that's just fine the way it is. Okay. Okay, so system logs, test report, and test output, those are all partials that go in here. And it's like we're rendering that partial inside the build detail area. Just like render build detail partial. Gets rendered inside of build details content. Just curious, why not build detail? Build details. Okay, so this turbo frame is build details. Okay, and this is build details content. Okay, so I guess this whole, okay, so the left pane is the build list, the right pane is build details. I think that's how I decided to conceptualize this. And then this is the build detail content. Okay. Render build detail. Maybe render build detail partial is good enough. Okay. So that seems to work. But now obviously we have duplication between render build detail partial and show. And we can probably do this. Okay. Render build detail partial. Default tab should really say default partial. Okay, and if we're gonna do that, we have to do that thing I don't like, which is params ID or params build ID. Okay. So that seems to work. Why do I need the or? Because the show page takes a param of ID for the build ID, and all the other pages take a param of build ID for the build ID. And that is just a Rails thing. Okay. So when we look at this, we see that there's show, which does render build detail partial, default partial. These other ones render system logs, test report, blah, blah, blah. So it's at least clear when we look at this. It's like, okay, all of these call render build detail partial. So that clues you in to look at that method. And then you see this. Okay. I am going to commit this, even though I'm not 100% sure about it yet. Render build detail partial. Okay, and I'm going to keep an eye on my CI just in case anything fails. Okay, that one is just running. Okay, so here's a thought. I could do something like this. And then, wouldn't need to do this. Maybe I actually kind of like this. It's duplicative, but it's not the kind of duplication that's likely to be confusing or cause a bug or anything like that. And it allows me to not have that or in render build detail partial.
The only thing I don't like about it is that the build list is in a method called render build detail partial when theoretically the build
Oh,
list is not
yeah.
part of the detail.
That's an excellent point. And I want to address that. Yeah, that's a good point, Roger. I thought of that too, and we might actually do that. Um, but first, let's address your point, Brian. Um, yeah, okay, that's a great point, Ryan. I'm really glad you brought that up. Hmm. And could it even be more clear if we called partial something more like build details partial?
Or can't you just call it render build now? Now that you've clarified that you call it build list and build details and the page is build, why not just say render build?
Well, because we are rendering the show page, the show template, and it's like consistent with this render show here. Oh yeah, and I want to update this so it's consistent. Um, because it's like when we render things in controller actions, we're always rendering a template. And so
True.
it's not exactly that we're rendering the build, we're rendering show. Okay, does this even work? Let's see. Okay. Refactoring. Okay. Now let's see how we feel about this. Yeah, and Roger, you had the idea to do something like this. Hmm. Even that's more duplicative, even though that's more duplicative, I think it's a bit mysterious if we were to do this. It's like, what's this ID and build ID business all about? But if we do this, that shows what it is.
I think it strikes a nice balance.
Yeah. And
Sort
then
of
we can
shows
say,
that there's a finder method coming somewhere.
mm-hmm.
Now, maybe take a step back and ask a question.
Yeah.
It looks like you've got 5 different show methods that are just showing like a picking a tab.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason why we're not just having a show method with a params of current tab or something like that? Instead of having all of the different uh, whole different views of the thing.
That's a good question. Let me bring this to a conclusion and then we can talk about that. Okay. So why not have like a parameter that specifies the partial, something like that? Here's the reason, Jonathan, and I'm open to the possibility that it's not a good reason. But the reason is if you look at the end of the URL, if we go to system logs, the URL changes to /system logs, and same with test report and test output. But as I'm saying that, I realize that doesn't have to be, those don't have to be their own separate routes, do they? Like the URL can still be the same, but we could do the route a bit differently. This could be some kind of wild card, couldn't it?
Well, even on that, theoretically, you could actually make this into an actual tabs and just have the show have tabs that are switching between tabs, and you're actually not even going to different pages. So there's 12 ways to slice that cat or whatever.
That's a gruesome metaphor.
So hypothetically, if you wanted to actually make this into
I mean,
like
the
actually
economy is
JavaScript
pretty
tabs.
bad. I don't want to start eating my house pets, but sorry, I interrupted you with my hilarious joke.
No, that's all right. No, just saying, like, if you were actually going to make this into like JavaScript front end tabs, you would load all of those partials and then switch between them. And I'm not making that as a suggestion, but just as a conversation point.
Yeah.
So if you're doing that, you would have a show and you would just actually use JavaScript to switch between system test and test output. And you just would have your one show route. Alternatively, you could have project /hash/ current tab equals system logs, current tab is test report, etc., and have that as a param that you're passing in, or there's something like that. I'm just wondering why I'm just wondering if there was a particular reason why you were having a different route that's doing almost exactly the exact same thing, except picking that final partial that's spitting out.
No, there's not a great reason for that. I'm open to, okay, let me take one thing at a time because I can only hold so much in my head. Let me first take this and say I want to change the 3 gets to a wild card. Let's see if it can figure out what I mean. I just don't remember the syntax to do something like that. Additional. That's a weird. Okay. Well, I guess I just didn't know what I wanted to call it. So I think I'll replace additional with partial. Okay. And that all goes to build show. Okay. Okay. And then I'll say partial params partial or default partial. Okay, now surprisingly that doesn't work. Okay, because these paths are no longer valid. So these would become just project build path. Partial, partial. Same thing here. I'm going to have ChatGPT fix these for me. Oh, I didn't update that. Okay. Okay, I'm going to show it that I called it partial. I'm going to show it my controller. And I'm going to ultimately not want render show. And I'm going to say fix these, update these links to match the new route. And obviously these 3 links are very duplicative of one another. And I intend to address that at some point somehow. Oh, whoops. Okay, I hit equals and it indented it very imperfectly. Okay. Something coming through in the chat. I made a GPT for Rails. Oh, yeah. Yeah, mention away, Roger. Feel free to share a link to it if you have one or something like that. Okay. Oh, interesting. I see this and that's not at all what I want, but I think the links are maybe just wrong. I think we maybe wanted something more like this. No, I don't know. Actually, yeah. Okay, well now it has it as a query string thing. That's not how it's supposed to go. Okay, this is no good. I'm gonna do this. Rails routes grep partial. I don't know what that asterisk is all about. Should it maybe be something more like that? Oh, now my, okay. Yeah, that still does the URL wrong. But I'm going to ask if I can do this instead. Okay, wonderful. Oh, and it's given me the updated links. How convenient. No good again. Okay.
What was the route again?
The route.
Like
Sorry.
how was it defined in the routes file?
Yeah.
Just get rid of the quotes. No, never mind. Quotes need to be there. Two.
Oh, let's do a test. Let's do this and see if it works. Yeah, so the route definition is fine. It's just the links that are wrong.
You're using the you don't have a as whatever for that. So you're using the partial, the project build path, not the project build view partial path.
Oh yeah, okay. I'm just gonna do that for a second. See what that gives me. Partial project build. I'm gonna call it, I think it's supposed to be quotes anyway. Build detail. Build detail project build. I'm gonna call it build detail content. Okay. I'm gonna give it this. And this. And say, do the links again. Okay. Wonderful. That works. I'm just going to commit that. and run all the tests and see if they pass. And I'm gonna put this back. Oh, they don't. How terrible. Okay. Select project spec. Yeah, visiting system logs page. Show HTML. Build
You remove
detail
that row.
content. What's that?
You remove that road, I think.
Right. I'm updating it to the new one. And it takes project build and the partial name. Okay, let's see if that passes. Okay. There's a message in the chat. Okay. Oh yeah, now I was gonna fix the controller. Okay. Actually, I should slow down a little bit. Um, I'm gonna set the build up here and see if I can just always do params ID. Evidently I can. That is excellent news. Okay. So then I can take out my params ID. Okay. And then I can do all this stuff. Partial is params partial or default partial. And I don't need the render show, of course, because that's what we're already rendering. Okay. Wonderful. And that's about 1,000,000 times better than what I had in the beginning. I'm really happy that we were able to arrive at this. Yeah, great. One last thing I think I might like to do, because I usually try to keep these to an hour. We're at a bit over an hour. I'm starting to just get really bothered by this duplication. So let's change this. Build detail content link. So it'd be nice if I could instead say build detail content link to system logs, system logs. Okay. I'm going to have 3 of those, of course. And this one's going to be test report. This one will be test output. Okay, and how convenient that they're all 11 characters. All right.
Sometimes the universe is nice.
Yeah. So I'm going to say I don't like this. I prefer this. Help me make it real. Okay. Use the helper in your view. Yeah. All right. I'm just going to put this in application helper because I don't feel like it justifies its own dedicated helper. Okay. Why are we we're passing in partial. Oh yeah, okay, I see. Build. Let's just see if that works. Yeah, I mean apparently so. I'm gonna look around. Yeah. Okay. Okay, but maybe this isn't the absolute greatest thing in the world. Hmm. Yeah, I'm not totally happy with this, but we don't have a lot more time. We have a negative amount of time because I went over what I was supposed to. Um, so I think I'm gonna pick back up with this next time, perhaps. Okay. Well, I did not expect to spend an entire hour on this, but I'm glad we did because those were worthwhile improvements.
Hey, Jason.
Yeah.
One little fun thing to maybe make note of.
Hmm.
So right now, if you change the address from test output on the address there
Uh-huh.
to something like /foobar.
Yeah.
So this is something for the to-do list
Mm-hmm.
because this is now rendering your foobar partial.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, thanks for giving me extra work, Jonathan.
Anytime. Happy
I
to
was going to
help.
be blissfully ignorant of that flaw until you pointed it out. Um, Roger, you're asking, is this a public repo? It is not public. It is not public. But I'll think about whether I want to make it public or maybe even make it for sale or something like that. I'm hesitant to make it public because I do intend this to be a commercial project, and I don't know if I feel ready to make the code public in that case. Um, I mean, Roger, you can just have the code. Um, I don't care about an NDA or anything like that. I'm not worried about somebody stealing my code. That's not why. I'm worried about security. That's the only reason why I wouldn't want to put it out there publicly. But yeah, I appreciate that, Roger. Um, yeah, anyway, I'll think about that. Okay, I'm going to real quick review what we did today. We fixed this bug. We wrote a test that helped us fix the bug. And in the course of doing that, we stumbled across a couple flaws. The one being the structure of this builds controller. And then I think I feel safe saying we improved the shit out of this controller. It's like so much better. So I'm really happy about that. And then obviously we like got started on this. I don't want to just say I'm happy with this right now, so I'm going to give this more time and maybe we'll pick back up on that next time. Any last questions or comments before we go? All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming, and I will see you next time.
Aragorn.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.